What's your specialty? That's a question I had been asked about a gazillion times in my career as a chef. It's in the top 5, absolutely. With other questions like, what's your favorite restaurant? What's your favorite food? Or the one that just slayed me was, so is it true you guys spit in the food? Like when you don't like someone, do you guys mess around? No, Harvey, we don't. We don't do that. No, we don't. No self-respecting chef on the planet would alter their food like that because chefs have a lot of pride. I think y'all been watching too many movies and TV shows or cartoons where, this awful person in a chef's uniform is doing something unmentionable to the food, which is just horrific. In my entire career, I've never seen or even been suspicious of or heard even a rumor of someone doing that. And I'm sure it's been done. I'm sure at some point, like 0.0000000000001% of all meals ever prepared in restaurants have had some alteration purposely. But that is by far the exception and not the rule. No, we don't get upset with clients. If we get upset with clients, you know what we do? We take it out on the server. That's what we would do. We wouldn't dream of doing anything to the food. It's just not professional. And we just had too much pride. We have too much pride in what we do. Even if we hate the plate that we're going to put up, we still have pride in it. Anyway, the going back to the question, because I want to be clear with you, dear fellow human being, who is also a listener of Seared, Stories from the Stove podcast. My name is Paul Silva. Welcome. One thing that the question of what is your favorite food, when I would be asked that, I'd say, I don't know. Name something. There it is. Like, it just depended on the day, depended on the hour. It changed all the time, depending on how I was feeling. I have no one food that I love. I have no one food that I loved cooking. I tried all sorts of stuff. I just loved jumping from one thing to another. I loved variety. Yes, there's some chefs that are like, I specialize in Northern Italian area cuisine or vegetarian, whatever. And they're very specialized, and they've practiced, they've apprenticed, they've worked hard, they've studied, they've done all the things. And that's their claim to fame. I was not one of those. And many chefs struggled with that too. But many did find their calling. And I share this because little did I know that in my jumping around from one thing to another, maybe it was Southeast Asian, then I was, okay, boom, next it was like, continental, then boom, I was off to the, South America, then boom, I'm off to wherever. And little did I know that me jumping around, that would be a pattern I would have in my life and in most areas, which has caused me a lot of grief, which I'm going to share with you, because what I want to talk to you about today is being multi-passionate, or what some people say, and I use this term right now, at least, multi-potentialite, versus being a specialist. And this can be something that it has, again, nothing to do with food. It can be just how you show up in your professional life, especially for those who are entrepreneurs, because that's where it really reared its head up. For me, it was when I left the kitchens and I became an entrepreneur and I started coaching. One of the things that they tell you, any marketing guru will say, niche down. You got to niche. We're in Canada, we say niche. So sorry, niche. I don't like the word. Sounds like the B word. So you got to niche down. You got to focus. You got to get so focused and specialized that not even a black hole can suck you in, because you're so anchored to your purpose and your audience, and just that's the thing you do. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I better fly, I better get myself together, fly straight. And I just couldn't do it. I struggled. I did some stuff for a little bit, but I just jump around so much because there's so many things I love to do and so many things I love to explore. And I'm going to tell you something, and this is where I really want to be honest. I have felt so much shame around it. For years, I have been so ashamed that I cannot I would say, like, what is wrong with you, Paul? What is wrong that you cannot just stay with one thing? What is wrong with you? You're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to make it if you're just jumping around like a cricket and not focus. Like, why can't you focus? Why can't you stick it out? You're weak. You don't know what you're doing. You should have gotten back. You should have just stayed in the kitchens. At least you had variety there, but you got a steady paycheck. And I really beat myself up, as you can tell. I mean, those are some of the things I used to say, and even worse. And as much as I looked into multi-potentialites, back in the day, they would also call them Renaissance men or Renaissance people, right? You look at people like Da Vinci and Eleanor Roosevelt and Benjamin Franklin, Hedy Lamarr, Maya Angelou. You see, they did all sorts of things, right? They were poets, but they were scientists, and they also, sculpted, and then they also invented things, and then they also, and that was celebrated. It was celebrated. And I felt anything but celebratory in my own Renaissance-ness, if you will. You look at people in entertainment who can, sing, act, dance, the triple threat. You look at someone like Donald Glover, a.k.a. Childish Gambino, and all the things, and he's celebrated because he can do this. So many other performers can do so many things, right? Tap dance and all that. We admire that in certain people, but in ourselves, sometimes we see it as a curse. So I just want to dive into a little bit of my experience with it, but also, what is a multi-potentialite? I've obviously given you kind of an overview, but what I also want to look at, what challenges, what are the pros and cons of being multi-passionate and a specialist, right? Is being multi-passionate, is that like ADHD? Is that just a weirdo? Is there something to it? And I just also want to go through a little bit of, ways that you can exploit and enjoy being a multi-passionate person, being that Renaissance person, because it's taken me so long to get to a place where I can see it as like a superpower rather than a character flaw. So if this is something you can resonate with, stick around because I'm going to jump right into this. There's a great quote from the book, Time Enough for Love by Robert Heinlein. Hope I'm pronouncing that correct. And he says, a human being should be able to change a diaper, plan an invasion, butcher a hog, con a ship, design a building, write a sonnet, balance accounts, build a wall, set a bone, comfort the dying, take orders, give orders, cooperate, act alone, solve equations, analyze a new problem, pitch manure, program a computer, cook a tasty meal, fight efficiently, die gallantly. Specialization is for insects. And I love that. It's so cool. Because for someone who jumps around stuff. Now, let me, before we dive in, we are diving in, I just want to there's a difference between, someone who maybe is really who loves doing what they do, is specialized, and maybe has a hobby or two, right? I'm not necessarily talking about that. I'm talking about someone who has such diverse interests. They have the curiosity, the creativity, the adaptability, such a palette in front of them that they truly have a hard choice deciding what they want to focus on. And this includes career. And there's some people that I'm great with numbers, but I'm also really good with a paintbrush, but I'm also really great with, behind the scenes, workflows, but I'm do amazing with gardening. And they're like, what do I do? And so it's kind of like that. Someone described that, it was a TED Talk. I can't remember her name, Emily something. They talked about putty-like. And think of putty in your hands, right? You can. It's malleable and moldable. They talk about being accomplished and adaptable and functional and resourceful, all-purpose and conversant and dexterous and many-sided and multifaceted. And those are wonderful traits. Like, those are wonderful things to have. And, when someone identifies as multi-passionate or potentialite, which I do, obviously, you go through these phases, or you go through these times where it's like, why was I cursed with this? And some of the challenges, I'm going to just share some of the challenges that we have, because I've gone through them all. And some I still do. Some I still struggle with. So see if this is familiar. One is you have great ideas, but no follow through. Like, you have so many ideas. I have my friend Anna says, like, Paul, you have no shortage of ideas. It's just the follow through that you stumble on. And I get so many ideas, but it becomes overwhelming because I don't know where to start. I want to start 10 things at the same time. So at the end, I don't do any because I'm afraid that I'll start and then stop midway. Or I'm going to feel like depressed, or I'm going to feel like I'm letting myself down by not finishing things. But that's part of the process of doing things, is even if you stop midway, like my friend Anna said, just do something. If you're halfway done and you feel like you're not going to do it anymore, then that's okay. You learn something. And that's one of the points I'm going to make later about one of the pros of being a multi-potentialite. But going through some of the other things that we are challenged with is, we can label ourselves, or others may label us as being irresponsible, or, a commitment phobe. And I have felt this too. I feel like I'm not responsible. Like, I can barely get through the day without dabbling into 15 different things. And it feels like I'm betraying myself because I'm not committed to the things. What's your level of commitment? And it means that you're not being serious about stuff. You're being careless. And again, it makes you feel a certain way. Alongside that, then you start blaming yourself. You get into this blame game. And the pressure, and I mentioned this earlier, the pressure to perform or to stick to one task or one career, it creates this idea that, again, what's wrong with you? You need discipline. That's what you need. And I have so many books on discipline and habits and all that. And there's a reason why some of them don't work. And I'm going to share that in a bit too. But again, I would blame myself. Like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And then alongside that, and I recognize this next one is about not fitting in. Pardon me. I was in a men's group for a year, and we met like 5 days a week, and they would get really focused on their things, and I felt so scatterbrained, and I felt like I didn't fit in. I felt, again, something was wrong with me, that these guys were getting this done no problem, but I wasn't. And I felt lonely. I felt alone. Like, what is it about me that I'm messed up this way? Why was I given this curse? And then that goes to the next point, which is disappointment. Like, everyone has a goal. I see all these people with goals, and I didn't have one. I still struggle with having one because there's just so many things I want to learn. I just want to soak up everything. And maybe that's my goal. I don't know. I just want to learn stuff. Or I would put so much work into this thing, then I'd move the goalpost and then really work toward that, then move the goalpost, and my self-confidence would get shot. And I don't know if you can relate to that, right? And again, then the whole thing is like, is it ADHD? Am I just weird? Do I have like a messed up personality? And maybe ADHD, I have not been formally diagnosed. I feel like I'm probably somewhere in that mix. But I don't necessarily want to blame how I am for ADHD. That's just how I've always been. Am I a weirdo? Well, jury's out on that one. But again, it just makes you question yourself, and you try to categorize yourself in terms of a personality. But that's you. That's you. Another thing that, if you're a multi-potentialite, a generalist, is that sometimes you'll stick to something that you're not meant to stick to, even if it kills you. And I've done this for years, where I'm like, I've got to do this. And the only reason I'm doing it is because I want something to stick to, even though I'm not interested in it. And it's awful. It's an awful way to live. You're like, I'm not connected to the thing that I say that I'm connected to. Like there's something missing. And so I've gone through all of these and more. And if that is you, I just want to say, just this is not so that you have further ammunition to beat yourself up. Just to say that that's common. These things that we say are common. So what has worked for me? Okay, so, I'll share what has worked for me, but what I do want to share is the specialist, because I want to talk a little bit about the specialist. The specialist, right? The person who's niched down, the person who has found their thing, which is awesome. By the way, this is not disparaging in any way towards anyone who specializes in something, who has found their thing. That is brilliant. I love it. In many ways, I wish I had that too. But someone who's a specialist obviously has deep knowledge of something. They go a mile deep rather than a mile wide. Their skills are focused, right? They have they have a narrow but important area of expertise. And with that, especially when it comes to career, is more pay because you're more valuable. There's less competition. Your expertise is valued. You have a strong reputation in your industry or niche. You become like a go-to person with such and such. And your career can just keep going and going because you just are so hyper-focused, so beautifully aligned with what it is that you're doing. And the thing is that you enjoy it mostly. Whereas again, someone who's a generalist doesn't quite go that distance. And the downside, I guess, of specializing, I mean, it could be that you limit yourself in a way. But what I find is that people who are specialists, they stay in it for a reason. Now, I was a chef. I specialized in just being a chef. That was my specialty. But within that, I would argue that there were so many things. There was management, there was cooking skills, there was organization, execute. There were so many skills underneath being a chef that held enough variety for me. So it was wonderful being a chef. I also had the energy for it. I'm 54 now. I don't have the body for it. I don't have the stamina for it. But I learned so many things in there. But I didn't specialize in anything. I just enjoyed the learning. I just enjoyed the environment. I think when you're a specialist, what maybe you do lose out on is you have to sacrifice things to be a specialist. Because you can't do everything, you have to give up on certain things. You just have to say to yourself, if I really want to excel in this area, I have to drop this, this, and this. And people make that choice. That's their choice, and they live with it. And for many, it's a win. And they can still have hobbies on the side. They can still do, but maybe they can't become an architect as well. Maybe they can't become a full-time artist, watercolorist, or something. They have to stay and become like someone a mechanic who works on a certain type of vintage car, let's say. So there is the specialist mindset is wonderful. And I just want to make clear that I am not at all throwing shade on specialists. The joys, though, of multi-passionate work are many. And this is where I struggled because I couldn't see it, because I kept seeing this as a curse. One of the things that is great about being multi-passionate is that your creativity gets skyrocketed. There's adaptability. There's more of there's a greater fulfillment, at least for me. This is only me talking. That creativity and adaptability is great for problem solving because you can take your skill sets or perception of things, let's say as an artist, and maybe put it towards something like an IT issue. Let's say you're really into computers and you're building a computer and you're having a problem. You can come at it not from an IT computer tech way. You can think of it, when I was doing oils, I was doing this and I had this problem. Like you can transfer ideas from one area to the next. It's wonderful. And being adaptable is also great in the real world, quote unquote. If you're able to jump from place to place and be adaptable, being adaptable is one of the greatest skills you can have ever in anything, is being adaptable. That's what's his name? Darwin talked about, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, it's the most adaptable. And then alongside with creativity, there's the intersection of innovation. So because, again, they're a jack of all trades, they can bring different ideas together and create something new, right? So if, let's say, you love gardening and you're really good at it, and then you're also good at, computer programming, maybe there's something you put together. You create an app for gardening or something. You know what I mean? Like you can play around with different things. Another thing about multi-potentialites is resilience. The cool thing is, if like what some people do with careers, because that's the other thing is, then what do I do? There's different things you can do. One of them is just having multiple streams of income, MSIs. So maybe you do some projects, maybe you're a photographer and you do some side projects, and then maybe you do something else, and you do that, and then you also walk dogs, and so you have like 5 or 6 streams of income that individually may not create, you can't live off of, but together you're fine. And what's great about that is that, let's say the dog walking dries up a little bit, then maybe the photography level like goes up, or maybe this one goes up and this one. So there's always places that you can fall back on. And then I think the other thing too is empathy. When you can see things from different viewpoints, and you're in contact with so many different kinds of people, you're not just dealing with like just lawyers all day, right? Or clerks or court workers or whatever. But if you're working with all different kinds of people, you see different sides of people, you see different aspects of them and yourself. And so you're able to have more empathy, right? And it's a beautiful thing. And that is what's taking me so long to understand, is that all of this, that's what I'm meant to be doing. Like, what if life isn't about, what if the purpose of life is just to experience life? What if that's it? As opposed to me trying to monetize everything. Like this podcast, I do it because I enjoy it. I'm not looking to make money off of this. If down the line, let's say it got really popular and I started monetizing, cool, that's great. It might pay a phone bill or something. Right now, it's nothing. It's been a year. It's, it is what it is. But I still show up. I still love doing this. And then later, I'm learning how to do stuff. How to on my camera, my nice camera. I'm learning how to edit some photos in RAW format. I've never done that before. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on my leadership group. And then after that, I'm going to work on understanding runes and my charms for my spiritual work. And then after that, I'm going to be doing. I have to do some worksheets for something. And then I have to do all of this I'm doing today and more. I get to do all that. Like, how cool is that? I get to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to study this. I'm going to watch this YouTube on this, and then I'm going to create this. I'm going to outline this. I'm going to do, and I get to do that. I go to a coffee shop, and I go there. It's brilliant. And there I was complaining about it, So I just want to reiterate that it's making the mindset shift. Instead of seeing it as a curse, it's a blessing. And you get to do it. Now, if someone's saying, well, what about career? There are several aspects. Like I said, there's the MSIs, or, one thing that people do is they get a job, like a full-time job that they don't hate, that it requires you to not bring work home. You just do your hours, you go home, right? And you still, you still add to the environment. And then you come home and you have like 57 different things you can do. And some people do that. So they find something that is, they work in retail, or they work like whatever, wait tables, work in a warehouse, something that can be fulfilling at a certain level. But then after that, you get to play. And so there's that as well. Or you can, As an entrepreneur, you can create something out of nothing. You can create a specialty that maybe wasn't there before. Or you find a specialty that has a little bit of everything that you like, and you just really ground yourself into that, and you get to jump around. Let's say if for some reason I decided I want to get back into kitchens, I would probably create something where I get to go to people's home, maybe personal chefing, but I'd find a way to make it work for me. Maybe because I like photography and all that. Maybe I shoot stuff at the same time. Maybe I help create cookbooks for people because I also like writing, and I've done recipe development, and I like photography. And so there's so many different things, you know what I mean? So if you're struggling, I really invite you to think about the things you really enjoy doing. Even right now, you can change it in 6 months, whatever. And how can I make it work for me rather than blaming myself and doing all the things and really beating myself up? Okay, I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to wrap up. I've got 1 or 2 more things to share with y'all, and then I'll let you go. I looked up who had that TED Talk. It's Emily Wapnick. And she said something about many interests, many jobs over a lifetime, and many interlocking potentials. And there's something to be said about living a life where there's just so much at your fingertips, and you like diving into the buffet, right? It's like a buffet. I know it's an overused metaphor, but if you think of all the things out there to play with, you can have your usual dish, right? My wife is one of those people who, when she finds a dish at a restaurant, that's it. Like, she's forevermore ordering. So there was a restaurant in San Francisco. It was this wonderful Vietnamese. I think it was Vietnamese. And she just knew number 45. 45. That's it. We walk into the restaurant, this place in San Francisco, 45. That's it. And we still joke about it to this day. This was many years ago. But that's the thing. And she will go at it forever. And she's one of those people who can focus on one thing, and she's done very well for herself. And there I am every time, like, ooh, what am I going to try now? What's next? Let's try this restaurant. She's like, no, let's go. I just want number 45. I was like, okay. I could never do that. It's just not in me. And the one thing about being a multi-potentialite is just accept it and then lean into it. Trust that the dots will connect. Going back to the buffet, like, trying all sorts of stuff. Some things you may not like, or some things you may just have a small bite or two, go, oh, it was interesting, and move on. And that's kind of the way I'm looking at it now. It's like, I don't have to, just because I'm studying film, I love doing video editing. Doesn't mean I'm going to be a video editor. I know I'm not going to be. I know I'm not going to be a professional photographer at all. But I love to learn because it's going to help me down the line. And this is the thing. This is what really sews it up for me, is that what you're learning today, what you're picking up, is eventually in some way going to help you down the road. Like, even if you're not going to, let's say I'm doing photography, it doesn't mean that maybe in 10, 15, 20 years from now, I'll be using photography for something. I may or may not, but it's the learning of the photography. It's the ideas. It's the rewiring in my brain. The invitation to see things in new ways, that is going to help me. That is going to help with that adaptability I was talking about earlier. That's going to help with the resilience. Having all these different skills, all these different things. And it reminds me of one of my wife's clients, and she was going to help us do like a coffee station in our house. All this kind of, it never really panned out, but I was like, how does she know how to do this? She said, she reminds me of you, Paul. She's really good at a lot of things, and she's been successful at one, or like, she actually has a few things that she does at the same time. And here's the funny thing. I admire it in her, and yet I beat myself up over it. Like, what? What's that all about? And so that's why I'm just now, and this is only recent, my friend. This is why I'm talking about it now. It's only now that I'm really starting to embrace it and see it as like a cool thing. And I've had people tell me for years, like, every time I would switch topics in my business or anything, I was like, oh God, what are people going to think? They're going to think I'm a flake. They think I'm a loser. But I would have people messaging saying, Paul, I love watching this. I love seeing, because I can't do that. I don't do that myself. I've been stuck in this insurance job for like 30 years. I wish I could just jump and do this. And so I have to also be grateful that I'm in this position that I can do all this. So, and here's the funny thing, and I'm gonna wrap up in a second, is now that I've relaxed into it, I'm getting really cool ideas and stuff that I can actually tackle and stuff that can actually be something physical, something tactile, something that I can create. And it's so cool. I'm not going to share that now. It's just literally the idea came to me yesterday. And I'm excited about it, but it never would have come if I were still holding and clutching tightly onto this idea that this multi-passionate personality of mine was a curse. So if that is you, if you are listening and you feel that this is a curse and why can't I stick to one thing, I invite you to see it as a superpower. I invite you to see it as something that not everyone can do, that not everyone is interested in, not everyone has the capability to do. It's neither good or bad or better or worse. It's just that can be you. And it's a brilliant thing to have so many, pokers in the fire, so to speak. I love it. I'm never bored. I'm rarely bored. Rarely bored, because I have so many things I'm interested in, and so many things I watch and read and do and practice and learn and try and experiment with. It's when I shut all that down and listen to the voice of, oh, you should be doing one thing, that's when I'm miserable. Like effing miserable. So I hope that's useful to you, multi-potentialite. And if you're someone who is not that, maybe just what you can take. I can't tell you what to take away from this, but there could be something about maybe just playing around, like not to be afraid to step into something else. Because what happens to people who specialize is eventually their career winds down. And then they struggle with the what now. And this is where people get into a lot of trouble. This is like emotionally, mental health wise, all that, because they don't have anything else. So if you are specializing in something, please go out and enjoy something. Try something new. Explore, expand your space. You can still be the specialist, but play into other areas so that you have something else that you can step into. Because also, what if you get injured or hurt or you can't do the thing you do anymore? What if you're let go? You have other things you can play with. So just putting that out there. The other thing I want to put out there is please share, like, comment, subscribe. I'd love if this is useful to you and you know someone who's a multi-potentialite, share this with them. Show them you care. Sharing is caring. And also, I am doing the Soulful Guidance one-on-one sessions still. This would be a great way to look at 2025, what's coming up. Are you stuck in something? Do you need some guidance in something? I use divination like tarot and oracle. I have found objects I use, bones, charms. There might be some mediumship. There could be whatever it is, to help you tap into your spirit guides, or just I tap into them and I share messages. And so if that's something that interests you, it's 1 hour. It can be remote or live. You'll have the links in the description, and they're powerful. They're powerful. So check that out. Spots are open. Spots are open. Let's finish 2024 very cool like. All right. That's all I got for you. So kitchen's closed. Now scram.